about it, and in fact, if you have ideas on them, feel free to share with one of our board members or Autumn, who is our lovely co-director. We wanted to identify communities that had shared characteristics to ours to build more community power in the kinds of asks and things that we want, both at the state level and city level. We know that we can't do it all by ourselves, so identifying communities that may not necessarily be homogenous, because Oak Park is Oak Park and we're great because we're different than most communities in the greater Sacramento area. But if there's things that we can partner with on, either that be public safety goals, whether that be on the housing goals. One of the things that got brought up was SAC-RT, staying affordable for people of older age in Oak Park community that are connecting to other communities. Things like that we want to hear about and identify communities that are similar. Vacant lots. Many of us are curious what the heck is going on with them, what some of our policy opportunities are for vacant lots.
We got a birthday boy you just said.
Oh, we got a birthday?
We got a birthday boy.
Oh, great!
Yeah.
Happy birthday! Hey, we got your chicken just for your birthday.
Wow,
So vacant lots, you know, we've got some Autumn, our lovely co-director, doing some work into identifying who owns some of these vacant lots, what are some of our policy options for that, and we want to brainstorm together. We took down some of each other's shared skills. Some of us have legal backgrounds, some of us just have free time, maybe we're retired and want to get engaged, some of us have more community outreach skills. We want to identify what all of our shared strengths are so that we don't just have one or two people doing that. Another thing that came up, who are the people that are running a park in the greater Sacramento area? We just now had a new city manager that is going to be coming into her position in, I believe, just a few months from now. Those are very important things because those are the kinds of people who do the real work. You know, both allocating money, we're in a budget deficit. The city is looking at different funding options, some of which, you know, we may or may not be in favor of. So identifying who the real people are that do this work. We're intending to have a speaker series with the Policy and Government and Land Use Committee. One of those people that we want to invite to come address the neighborhood association is a city manager. Among other positions, I'll be working on a mock calendar for that Autumn and I will be connecting on and presenting to you all during our next Government and Land Use Committee, just to see like, hey, is this really hitting where we want to hit? Last two things. The second thing that we're going to be working on, so again, first, figuring out that mock calendar for a speaker series so that we can know who's doing what in the community and who to go to when we have problems. The second thing, again, vacant lots. We see that as a policy opportunity for us to think strategically about, okay, what are the policy goals and initiatives that we have? What are some of the negative externalities to that? So, you know, what are the consequences if we do, you know, try and tax vacant lots, or where are their public registries, things of that nature. And the third thing that came up from Adjourn during our last meeting was, is there a shared neighborhood association coalition? Turns out there is one. Some of their proposals are different than what we would generally support as an Oak Park community. So we'll also have conversations about that. So don't want to take up too much more time with that, but we're tentative next meeting is October 13th, which will also be Autumn's birthday. So early birthday there, and we'll likely be at Oak Park Brewery, but updates coming out soon about that.
Appreciate that, Loyal and Autumn. They're our most active volunteer committee, and so really appreciate you guys spearheading that, and please get involved if this is a topic that is of interest to you, or you just want to learn more about what our neighborhood association and our community is trying to do. Then I'll pass the mic to Donovan.
My name is Don Wilson. I'm a clinical research coordinator over at UC Davis Medical Center. I work in the university department, and my role there is to get people, patients that are coming in, connect with the various research trials, the new drugs that are coming out, and treatments that are being on the The reason I'm coming here to talk to you guys tonight because UC Davis Medical Center is in your community. We're going to be starting a new trial for patients that are suffering from what's called status epilepticus, which is seizures that are prolonged. And so this new study is looking at a new combination of medicines that we can give to these patients when they're coming into the emergency department have these seizures that aren't being stopped with first-line agents, which are typically benzodiazepines. And so we are looking at these new medicine combinations to stop these seizures, and they've been shown in previous trials to be quite effective. In fact, back in 2015, if you guys buy this out, we talked about the predecessor to this trial, and we got really good feedback from you guys. I'm not going back and so glad you have it. But part of this trial is what's called exception from informed consent. So when these patients come to the emergency department and they're having active seizures, they can't consent to receiving this new treatment. And so we've shown that these treatments have a life-saving benefit to stopping the seizures. And so what we are going to do is we're going to provide that treatment to these patients. And afterwards, we can gain their consent if they want to continue with it or if they want to opt out afterwards. We also have mechanisms, so if you are a parent or guardian of children that have seizures and you bring them in, we talk to you beforehand right at that moment. And we also have mechanisms for you guys to opt out as well at this time. So if you're sure, no way, I don't want to be any part of that, we have mechanisms where we can give you bracelets. So if you end up having a seizure, you come to us and we'll say, oh, I don't want to participate in this as well. So one of the really important part for us to show that we are taking your guys' feedback and we value your guys' feedback is receiving the feedback, of course. So I have some flyers that have links to the website. It also goes over the study in quite detail as well. But we're inviting you guys' feedback. Any questions that you might have, or any concerns you might have, to provide them to us. Because we want to hear them, we want to listen to them, and we want to show that we value that as well. And there's also the mechanisms for opting out as well. I'm not sure how much time I have, but I can take any questions while I'm here, and I can hang out for a little bit as well if you guys have any questions as well. But I also want to thank you guys again allowing me out. You guys have a really beautiful neighborhood. You guys have a really warm engagement as well. I've been to a couple of before in the past. You guys are very comfortable with each other. So it's great.
Yeah, thank you so much. Yeah, this is a great, we have so many resources in our neighborhood, and it's great that they come out to share them. So if you do have questions, there's a contact on there that we
I
can
got an
reach
email,
out.
the QR code, the website. We'd love to have you guys fill out. There's like a little feedback survey on the website. We'll ask you a couple questions. Throw them in there. Don't think twice about it. We'd love to receive feedback as well. Adjourn.
Yeah, so I have a question. So this trial would basically look like you're looking for community members to opt in, right?
This is just the feedback portion.
Okay.
There's going to be no informed consent. So if you don't opt out, you don't say anything otherwise, and you're having seizures, and you come to the emergency department, we try to give you the benzos, which is typically done. And the studies have shown that those are ineffective in around 2 out of 5 patients. The next step would be to give you the new study drug combination that we found effective in the previous trial. And so what I'm here for is just get feedback and answer any questions you guys might have, as well as provide the opportunity for you guys to opt out ahead of time. But it's an opt-out mechanism, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks for clarifying that. I just, a lot of the conversations like that we talk about here at the Neighborhood Association are about like, how do we build community resilience? How do we, ensure that we're prepared for disaster? How do we ensure that we have like understanding of like what happens when folks are experiencing health issues? And so I think it's very aligned with some of the stuff we hear at these meetings and out and out. So yeah.
Thank you so much. That's a great question as well. Any other questions? I won't take more time, but I'll be here a little longer, so don't hesitate to approach me. Otherwise, I'll leave a bunch of flyers here.
Where do you like based at? Is on this standpoint?
What's that?
Where do you like based at? Is on this standpoint?
Where the base at?
Oh, where does it go?
Yeah, right here at East Davis. And we're not the only hospital. There's a bunch of hospitals all across the nation that are participating in this. They're doing it as well.
Okay.
Yeah, so if you have anyone in your life that like suffers from seizures or is curious about this research, please feel free to reach out.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, meat and potatoes time. A few meetings ago, we had like a conversation with you all. We wanted to know what types of meetings you would like what meeting topics would be of interest to you all. And because of the climate politically, there was an ask out for resources regarding like knowing your rights and how we can help our neighbors who may be undocumented or immigrants or people of color that may look like whatever. And so we reached out to our partners and our community partners at UOP, McGeorge School of Law, and they're here to to kind of share their wisdom with us, share some resources, and then we can engage in a discussion and a Q&A afterward, after they present.
Thanks so much.
Yeah, thank you.
Hi, everybody. So once again, I'm Blake Nordall, and I run the immigration clinic at McGeorge. And it's my pleasure to speak with you. This is a small group, so I have a little bit of an agenda, but I'm happy to just also, as soon as you have questions, just let me know the question. I'm happy to try to address it, since we have this nice kind of small group. But basically, from what I understood, what I prepared for is to talk a little bit about what our constitutional rights are, but then we're going to put that into context of what happened recently in Los Angeles, and with the Operation at Large, is what it was called by ICE, where 2,800 people were arrested in a single month, and many more people were detained. So we're going to look at our constitutional rights from that context as to how the Supreme Court ruled recently, earlier this month. Then what does that mean going forward? And then what can we do to help our neighbors and to help our friends and to help ourselves? That's sort of my trajectory of what I'm hoping to talk about. So I've given you some slides with some basic information to help kind of as we go along. But my contact information is right there on the first page. So that's my phone number, and I'll give you that's our office general number. So at the end of this, I can give you my direct number. So if you have questions afterwards, or if there's a need, that you can reach out to us. But basically, so as you can see on the first slide, we all have the constitutional right under the 4th and the 5th Amendment. And we still do, even with the Supreme Court ruling the way they do. So with the 4th Amendment, that's the right to privacy, right? And so what that is that ICE cannot go into a private space without consent. So what is a private space? I have a slider on the next slide. It shows a picture of a place that you might think is a public space. It's the quad at McGeorge, but that's a private space, right? The general public is not able to be there at all times. But like the lobby of the eating area of a restaurant, that could be a public space. But the inside portion of the restaurant, that would be a private space. So ICE cannot enter into those private spaces, can't enter into their home without consent. California goes even a little bit further. So California goes a little further than the 4th Amendment. California, for places of employment, they state that an employer cannot consent to ICE going into private space. So in California, in order for ICE to go into the private space of an employer, they need a judicial warrant. If they don't have a judicial warrant, they can't go into the private space of the employer. And if they do, if the employer allows that to happen, then there are criminal consequences and fines to that employer. So California goes a little further. And it also means with the 4th Amendment, and this is where it's going to get tricky later when we're talking about ICE, what they're actually doing. So ICE can go up to anybody in the public. I can go up to Tyler, and I can ask Tyler, what's your name, where are you from? ICE is allowed to do that, right? So they're allowed. But then what Tyler can do is he can say, I'm exercising my right to remain silent. Am I free to go? And the ICE officer should say, yes, you're free to go. When ICE decides that he's not free to go, it's because they have to have some sort of reasonable suspicion that he is here undocumented. And that has to be based on facts that they can articulate, facts that they can state that comply with the U.S. Constitution. That's just to stop him. And when he says, am I free to go? And I say, no, I want to talk to you a little bit more. They have to have that reasonable suspicion that he's here without permission in order for them to do that. With how do I want to, it's like, with all the stuff that's going on, it's like complicated to move forward, but, okay, so what I also want to point out, which I think it's really important to bring up early, and I think Erica would attest to this too. If we have somebody in the United States who is undocumented, if they entered without permission, and if they are approached by ICE, and ICE asks them the question, where are you from? And the person says, I'm from Mexico. That is enough to switch the burden. So the burden of proof to prove that somebody is not a citizen is on the government. But the problem is, if ICE comes up to generally law-abiding individuals and asks them a question, they answer it. And so the individual says, well, I'm from Mexico. As soon as the person says that, it switches the burden. The burden goes to that individual to prove that they are here lawfully. And if they can't do that, they're going to get deported. They're going to get deported quickly. So I want to point that out right away in the beginning of who has that burden of proof. It's critically important because of what ICE is doing. It's switching the game. So the burden of proof is on the government. If Tyler said, my name is Tyler, but I'm exercising my right to remain silent, well, we're done. Now, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they only need to have a suspicion about immigration status. They can't be like, oh, I saw you smoking or something, some other law.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, ICE cannot be involved in regular law enforcement. So what they're doing, not in California, but what they're doing in other states, is they're working together with local law enforcement. They're like tag-along. So then when somebody gets pulled over for a pretextual stop, right? Oh, your taillights are broken. And then ICE can come up and say, by the way, what's your immigration status? And that's not going on in California because we don't cooperate with ICE. But it is happening in other states, unfortunately. So, yeah, so good question. Yeah, another question?
So could you just say, I'm from the United States, even
No.
if you're not?
Great point. You don't want to lie to ICE. So it's really important to exercise the right to remain silent. But I want to now switch gears a little bit and talk about what happens in Los Angeles. Okay, so I think that was in the month of June when that started. And as I said, 2,800 people were arrested, and we have no idea how many people were detained, but many, many more. And so what was happening, so ICE has not disputed this fact, which is that they looked at 4 factors as to how they were going to decide to pull people over and to go into try to arrest somebody. Factor number 1 is that they look Mexican. Factor number 2, they speak Spanish or they speak English with a Spanish accent. Factor number 3, where are they found? Places where ICE says undocumented people congregate, such as a car wash or a bus stop. Factor number 4 is what appears to be their work. So they said, well, this is the type of work we think undocumented people do, so those are factors that we can articulate to stop the individual, places like a car wash. Doesn't have to be all 4 of those. It seems like it could just be one of those, how the person looks, which is in direct violation of the Constitution. But so they have not challenged that those are the 4 factors that they're using. And I want to give you some examples. So, and we saw the example right at Home Depot here in Sacramento. I want to read to you something if I can. I can get the glasses. This is an example. ICE says, this is first, so officers are trained that under the 4th Amendment, brief detention, brief detention for questioning requires an immigration officer to have articulable facts that the person being questioned is undocumented. But I told you what those 4 factors were, and they were fine with that. Let me give you two examples of things that happened to individuals. This is a U.S. citizen, Jorge Viramontes. In the 9 days between June 9th and June 19th, agents returned 4 times, each instance in the middle of the workday at his car wash. On one occasion, an agent questioned Viramontes, asking if he's a citizen and requesting that he show his ID. Viramontes replied that he's a dual U.S. and Mexican citizen and supplied his California driver's license. The agent said the ID was insufficient, grabbed his arm, escorted him to a vehicle, drove him to a warehouse for further questioning. They held him for 20 minutes while they made calls to verify his U.S. citizenship and examined his ID before eventually driving him back. Another man who was working at a tow yard in Southern California, Los Angeles County, a masked agent ran at him, ordered him to stop right there, began asking him questions. They asked him, "Are you American?" at least 3 times. 3 times he replied that he is. Unsatisfied, the agents asked him for the name of the hospital in which he was born. And when he could not immediately recall that, the agents racked a rifle, took his phone, pushed him up against the metal gated fence, put his hands behind his back, and twisted his arm. So, the New York Times has documented at least 15 times of U.S. citizens being detained across the country, but we really don't know the number. But I want to, so of course these are violations of U.S. citizens' rights, but I want to assume for a second that that man was undocumented, right? So if that man is undocumented and he was grabbed, or they racked a rifle, they're masked, they take his phone, they push him up against the metal gate, they put his hand behind his back and twisted his arm. What if he said then, "Yes, I'm from Mexico"? That's an admission that he's not born here. The burden suddenly shifts to him to prove that he's legally here. He'll be deported unless that, we can fight that. So these are the tactics that ICE is taking place, and it's large scale. Now it's happening in Chicago. I think it's only a matter of time before it happens in Sacramento, partly because of the antagonism between our governor and ICE, and Mr. Bovine, who's the head of ICE for Southern California, I believe. So I think it's a matter of time before it does come to Sacramento, I would just say, of these activities. Any questions before I keep going? Sorry, sometimes. Yeah, thank you.
So, I guess from like a neighborhood,
Yeah.
just individual perspective,
Yeah,
human perspective,
Yeah.
obviously, so, right, so, I know a lot of the cases that we were hearing about were expedited removal,
yeah,
so just being done so fast that you're completely violating their due process rights,
yes.
and then somehow you expect them, after having been deported already, to somehow retroactively fight that when they can't.
Right.
And so what do you tell, like, let's just say I have friends or maybe someone in the neighborhood that's family and they're onlookers to this type of thing. Like, what do they do? Who can they call locally?
Yeah.
What could they then do at that point?
Yeah.
Not even just the individual. Because
Yeah.
obviously we know the trouble with the individual, but like, what do you do from like,
Yeah.
just my neighbor?
Yeah. So that's a kind of a 2-part question.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna tack it backwards. So you said, like, what can we do for our neighbors, right? So I think most of you should know about the organization NorCal Resist, which is in Sacramento. That we're so lucky that we have them, an organization based on volunteers. And so we partner with them at the Law School Immigration Clinic, but they do really amazing things, and we're lucky. So what you would want to do is, if you feel that you are safe to do this, is you want to record what is happening. Not just take pictures, you want to record it with a video with the volume on. And from a safe distance, you can't interfere with an ICE operation or you'll be arrested yourself for interfering. And so you want to stay from a safe distance, but you want to record it. Then you want to get that information to NorCal Resist. So what does recording it do? I'd like to think people act a little differently if they're being recorded, but maybe that's not the case anymore. But There are still ways, so I told you that example, let's pretend that, because I'm sure it's happened, that man who was, they grabbed his phone, they pushed him up against the fence, they hurt his arm, and they arrested him, right? Imagine he was undocumented. If that was filmed, and that got to a nonprofit who could then get it to attorneys, what we can do is we can file a motion to suppress. So immigration, I don't want to get too much in the weeds with you all, but immigration doesn't have the same rights, immigrants don't have the same rights in immigration court as people who are accused of crimes due in criminal court. But if the violation of his Fourth Amendment rights was egregious, that's the standard. If the violation of the Fourth Amendment right was egregious, which I think it would have been in that case, then the judge can suppress his admission. We can say that was not a voluntary statement. His arm was being twisted when he said it. But if we don't have a recording of that, they will never, ever, ever suppress that evidence. They'll say, oh, it's on a piece of paper. He said he's voluntarily from Mexico. No proof that he came in illegally. So yeah, so recording it, getting it to NorCal Resist, and then they'll share it with volunteer attorneys that can help with the motion to suppress. But obviously that doesn't help. It's not a great way. It's a help of an individual, which is critical. But we need some systemic changes. But you brought up the issue of expedited removal, so I'll talk about that a little bit. So expedited removal it's in the statute. So this is one of the things that Donald Trump and his administration, they didn't pass very many immigration laws in the first administration, right? And I follow that more closely, but they didn't. They didn't pass really any laws. But they read the laws and they said, how can we take advantage of these laws? And laws that were never enforced because other presidents and administrations thought they violated the Constitution if they actually applied them. But the Trump administration said, let's apply them. So the expedited removal is actually from 1996. But what it says, what the statute says is if you are found anywhere in the United States and you cannot prove that you have lived in the United States for at least 2 years, you are subject to expedited removal, which should happen in 24 hours, but no matter later than 7 days. And you have, not only do you have no right to an attorney, you have no attorney. You can consult with an attorney, you can find others. They cannot appear with you and advocate for you in court.
Well, you're going to get to go to court.
Well, yeah,
ICE
so,
can report you.
well, so ICE, you can get the, well, this is if you have a fear of asylum. Then yeah, so usually the person will say, I'm afraid of asylum. If they listen to that, then they get a quick asylum interview over the phone, which can be appealed. There was a Supreme Court case that went up. It went up to the Supreme Court and they said this was all fine. The transcript showed that the asylum interview over the phone took about 5 minutes and the review hearing with the judge took about the same. And no attorneys are allowed to advocate. So yeah, expedited removal is serious. And it's hard to know how many phone calls you get. The reports that we're hearing is that somebody who's detained in that situation it's not like they're just given, hey, there's a phone call, everybody you want to. They're restricted access to even call their family and get proof that they've been here for 2 years. So yeah, it's very scary. But they're applying it pretty strategically to individuals that the Biden administration paroled into the United States in his last administration. So I'm not sure if you're curious about that, but if somebody comes to the border, U.S. border, usually U.S.-Mexico border, and asks for asylum, the government has 2 options. One is to detain the person, well, 3 options. One is to say there's COVID, so get out of here. That's what they did. The other is to say we can detain you while you're asking for asylum, keep you detained. And the third is to parole the person and allow them to come into the United States so that they can have a hearing with an immigration judge and ask for asylum. Trump said that parole was illegal. He's wrong. He says it's illegal. And so they're trying to put all those people in expedited removal. So it's really focused on that. So it's unlikely to happen. Unlikely to happen right now to folks that are in grade.
Doesn't it seem like it's happening to people that they think have not been here for 2 years in general?
Yeah, well, right. So they are applying. Yeah, they're not indiscriminately applying scare people. So yeah, they are focused on, well, they think it applies to anybody, as long as, if they were paroled in, they don't care how long. They're still currently applying to people who are still less than 2 years, but their policy is that if you were paroled in, you're subject to expedited removal, no matter how long that parole is. So, yeah, good question. Another question? Yeah.
I have a follow-up to that, like if they were to ask you for proof,
Yeah.
like if you're not able to reach out to them, what kinds of proof should people hold on to if they're worried about it?
Yeah. Right, so what we would tell people is make sure you have like a trusted family member or friends number memorized, phone number memorized. If you are yourself an immigrant and you have any sort of work authorization or a green card, then the advice now is to carry that with you. It's the law, but we never said you have to carry it, because if you lose your green card, it takes like a year to replace it, at least, and a lot of money now. So, but now I don't feel safe to tell people to carry a copy of it. Tell people to carry their work card or the green card and just be very careful, but if they're, especially if they're over 18. So they should,
Not a copy of it?
no.
What about expired copies of green cards, not?
If they're still a permanent resident, then that's the best they can do.
Well,
Yeah, please.
Yeah, I mean, in the last Trump administration, they were just at the point of expanding expedited removal to the whole country, which is where we are now. But they didn't get to it. So the biggest fear of a lot of immigration advocates was he's just going to pick up where he left off, which is what he did. And even back then, we were basically telling, I deal with undocumented people as my clients every day. What do I do, and how do I get out of expedited removal by showing I've been here for 2 years so I get to see a judge? And we literally are telling people, carry documents with you that show your physical presence, and people go, oh, what does that mean? So, talking to them about it, like, many people have driver's licenses, almost everybody has a driver's license now, because you can get one whether or not you're undocumented from the state. And it doesn't have your nationality on there, it just has your name and your address. So look at your driver's license. When was your driver's license issued? Was it issued over 2 years ago? Good. Was it issued in the last year? Great. You've got something that you're already carrying around with you that shows you've been here for a year and a half. Do you have a couple other things? We've even suggested pay statements that are from, sometime in the last 2 years. They don't want to see you've been here for 10 years. They want to see you've been here in the last 2 years. So we advise people to, we sent out emails and told people, put this together. And I don't know how many people are doing it. It's not a fun thing, and who wants to hear around a bunch of stuff. But you want to have at least something, and that's at least how I've been working on the ground, with my clients.
Following this trend, and I can share with you later, but following this trend, like the things that we recommend people to do, if they are undocumented, besides carrying things with them, is to start gathering evidence that they keep in their home of their birth certificates of their children, their marriage certificate, of evidence, like to Erica's point, actually I'm going to add to, which is evidence that you've been here for 10 years, because there is an application you can make if you've been here for 10 years. So if the person starts to gather these things now, and they are placed into removal proceedings, they will have them. So they gather their key family documents, passports, birth certificates, marriage certificates, report cards of children. I say just keep those, evidence of physical presence for 10 years. And then the phone numbers on the refrigerator for other people to know who to call if the person is detained, especially if they have children. So having kind of like an emergency plan. And there's a packet that's put out by a really good organization called ILRC. It's called Emergency Preparedness Packet that I can share with you after this. I didn't bring it, but that's a very helpful packet to share with people. It's in multiple languages, and that helps them so that they're ready. And then I think that's the best thing too in terms of helping.
What's that organization?
Immigrant Legal Resource Center, and they go by their initials, ILRC. They're in San Francisco, so it's ilrc.org. and they have like, it's called emergency family preparation packet, more or less. And I know at least it's in English and Spanish, but I think it was in other languages too.
They have a lot of really good
Yeah.
resources and they're accessible to the public.
Easy to read. And they basically have sheets that that person can fill out, like who's your point of contact. I want to talk a little bit about what the Supreme Court did with this. So where the ICE says, basically if you are brown, we can stop you and then we can twist your arm and you'll tell us you're from Mexico and then we can deport you. So the district court judge said that violates the Fourth Amendment. That's a district court judge. The Supreme Court reviewed it, and they're doing something called what's an emergency docket. They're doing this more and more where there's no decision. You don't see a decision, you just get a yes or no. And they said, I don't know how you would phrase it, they said no, the district court judge was wrong. That it doesn't violate the Constitution. And usually nobody writes a decision. I told you it's like you just get yes or no. In this case, though, both Justice Kavanaugh and Sotomayor chose to write decisions. So Justice Kavanaugh wrote a concurrence, because for some reason he felt compelled to do that. I'm not sure why. But he said, so now people are calling these Kavanaugh stops, because he says, these are just brief. For example, the 4 factors provide reasonable suspicion. Those 4 factors I told you about, they provide reasonable suspicion, especially given how many undocumented people are in Los Angeles. That's his official decision. No citation, just said it. There's a lot of undocumented immigrants in Los Angeles, so those 4 factors are totally reasonable for a stop. Plus, if the person happens to be a U.S. citizen or is otherwise lawfully in the U.S., but unfortunately was found at a bus stop in Brown, then that individual will be free to go after a brief encounter. These individuals may promptly go free after making clear to the immigration officers that they are U.S. citizens or otherwise legal in the United States. So it's a pretty ridiculous statements that he made, and they're they're not true. So how do I address it? So I think I want to, first, somebody said it better than me. There's a quote from the head of Malva, and they said, in effect, Kavanaugh sacrifices the rights of all Latinos to the false Trumpist idol of unconstrained immigration enforcement. His opinion rests on crude and unsupported assumptions and stereotypes about the undocumented. He ignores other demonstrated and critical to context, like the fact that many of those detained question were the people who were doing the detaining were in unmarked vehicles, masked, civilian clothes, with weapons. So that these encounters, he doesn't seem to think it's a big deal about the stops that will happen to U.S. citizens. He clearly doesn't think it's a big deal for somebody who's undocumented because it's reasonable suspicion. Justice Sotomayor breaks that up. Oh, you have a question?
I was just curious about what he meant by there was a decision, there was just this for just an answer or something like that, and what concurrence is.
Yeah, thanks, probably people that too. It's confusing. So normally when the Supreme Court issues a decision, there's 9 judges. So there's a majority decision, sometimes they all agree, so there's just a majority decision, and one person writes it and everybody says, that's a great decision. Sometimes they don't agree, so it's like 5 judges go one way, 4 judges go the other way, right? So there's a majority and a dissent. The emergency docket is that it's supposed to be a limited use docket. I'm not a constitutional professor, but it's for emergency purposes, put it that way, right? Where there's going to be irreparable harm if the Supreme Court doesn't respond right away. And so there's not a full briefing. The parties don't go up and argue. There aren't pages and pages and pages of papers that are filed with the court. It's all very fast. And because of that, the judges don't write decisions. They just say yes or no, okay? Affirm or deny. And it's very rare that a judge would write a decision. It's unusual that there's 2, especially so Justice Kavanaugh, when he did a concurrence, that means he's agreeing with the majority, which was a 6-3. So 6 judges out of 9 thought that the district court judge was wrong and that the actions of ICE officers meet the Constitution. Okay. So that's what it means. And so Justice Kavanaugh just felt the need to explain his thoughts. He said, I want to say more than yes. I want to say why. And why is because there's so many undocumented people in Los Angeles. And why is because it's brief and it's just a minor inconvenience if you happen to be legal. Just prove you're legal and it's going to be fine. What he's avoiding is that, what I told you at the beginning, right? So first of all, the burden is on the government to prove that you are not born here. So Kavanaugh got that wrong. And then also he got wrong that, racial profiling. So, and this reasonable suspicion about undocumented people, because there's so many undocumented people in Los Angeles. Sotomayor she just eats them alive. I could just read her decision to you, but I won't. But what she says is, first of all, no statistic on the undocumented people in Los Angeles. She also points out that almost 50% of the population of Los Angeles County identifies as Hispanic or Latino. 50%. And more than 50% speak another language besides English at home. So what she says, and she points out, because these are prior cases, prior decisions from the Supreme Court, have said, you cannot base reasonable suspicion by your big assumption, when that draws in a bunch of people who are innocent. So what she says is like, you can't say, that it's reasonable to pull over a brown-looking person because a lot of brown people in Los Angeles are undocumented. That's what the Kavanaugh said. She said, you can't say that because there are so many more who are lawfully present. This is a big pool. And so you just can't do that. And so she has cases about that. But she's in the minority. She lost. So justice is losing right now. That's 3. We got 3 on our side, 6 on the other side. She says it's the government's burden. These 4 factors don't allow for any sort of individual inquiry by the 4th Amendment that's required. So there's a lot more that I won't get into the legal details, but her conclusion is this. What does this mean? All Latinos, this is a quote, all Latinos, U.S. citizens or not, who work low-wage jobs are fair game to be seized at any time, taken away from work, and held until they provide proof of their legal status to the agent's satisfaction. That's how she concludes the decision. So it's pretty, I'm not sure exactly when we reached out to Tyler, but it's probably around this time. This decision came out September 8th, I think. And I just want to point out a few things that you probably all know, but just to share. The rhetoric of ICE. Like if you were to watch the TikTok videos of ICE, they're just arresting a lot of felon individuals, which however you want to feel about that. But fewer than 10% of undocumented immigrants have any criminal record. And that criminal record for that 10%, the majority is immigration violations and traffic violations. So fewer than 10%. And who does this affect besides, of course, all of us? From the chance that any one of your neighbors be pulled over for those factors. But if that gentleman was talking about the expedited removal, but most people that are in the United States that are undocumented have been here for more than 15 years. 1/4 of all Californians are immigrants, and almost 1 in 2 children in California has at least one immigrant parent. And just in California alone, more than 3 million people that are U.S. citizens or permanent residents live in a mixed status family with undocumented immigrants. Just wanted to end on that. And so you have on this slide the North how to resist, because that is how we can resist. Yeah,
No, that was where I was going with my question. So yeah, it was more of those like, okay, the toolbox, right?
Yeah.
So it sounds like that's where you're going, but
Yeah.
so far it's sharing this important information,
Yeah.
right, with our friends and neighbors.
Yeah.
It's recording from a safe distance when things are going down.
Yeah.
And it's knowing kind of what legally you can say and what not to say, right?
Yeah. Don't lie. So what I would tell people in terms of this toolbox, going along with that, So a lot of clients that I'll talk to, if they're from Mexico, they have a Mexican matricula, which is like an ID card, in their wallet. They should not have that in their wallet, okay? They should not have any document from another country in their possession when they're in public. But a lot of times people have a matricula because it's ID, it has their photo on it, it's helpful, like to go to a bank and stuff, but it's not helpful if ICE pulls you over and grabs your stuff without your permission, or with your assumed permission. So definitely don't carry any ID from another country, don't carry any false IDs, don't say anything that's not true to the immigration officer. I'm going to say this, but I recognize how hard it is. To some extent, I can't recognize how hard it is because it hasn't happened to me and it probably won't happen to me because of how I look. But if you can remain silent, if you're undocumented, when you are pulled over, when that ICE officer is running after you with their mask, if you are strong enough and brave enough to remain silent, that's critically important. Because what I talked about in the beginning is that it's their burden to prove that you were not born here. But once they do, once you say, yes, I wasn't born here, then the game switches. And so I recognize how hard that is, but if we're able to remain silent on nationality, where you're from, that's very helpful. Very, very helpful. Yeah, Eric?
There's a really great resource, and I didn't bring it with me, but there's something called a red card.
Well, I haven't.
And everybody should look at it and know what's on it. Half of it's in Spanish, half of it's in English. They have them in other languages as well. And it's literally like an old driver's license size card that a person who is trembling with fear because this law enforcement person is asking them a question and they've always followed, they like to follow the law, they can hand it to that ICE officer. And it tells the ICE officer that they are exercising their constitutional right to remain silent. So we give those out like candy to our clients. I mean, they're out there literally in their community because it's an incredibly hard thing. Imagine yourself in that situation and somebody in a uniform with a gun and now with a mask and is asking you these questions and you've never been stopped by a law enforcement officer before. I would want to answer their questions and I'd be terrified. And yes, it takes an incredible amount of courage to not answer the question and to defy them. But that's where you need to start. And I'm telling people, if they then still arrest you illegally, that's where you pull out your 2 years and say, I've been here for 2 years. You're not saying you're from another country. I've been here for I've been here for a long time. That's when you say it, but start with the silence.
But yeah, you don't say it.
And if somebody's videoing this, even better,
Yeah.
So, no passport, don't carry a passport with you? And then the other thing I have concerns about is anchor babies and being married and their spouses being pulled out when they get married and their spouses get deported.
What's the concern? I don't understand. What are you saying?
Because when you get, I went through immigration with my husband and he's from Africa and I went through that whole thing and I'm concerned for young people now going through that. And they come and snatch their spouse up and deport them because it's happened.
Yeah. Well,
And
yeah.
we're talking about the babies that
Sure.
are being born and they come grab them.
The Trump administration really likes to scare people, so I think they're doing a really good job right now. And so I hate to add to that, but what they did say recently is that, so when you're married, if you're married to somebody who's a U.S. citizen, and you're here undocumented, the U.S. citizen files a petition for that individual. It's called a marital petition. Trump administration this year said that there will always be an interview process and that we have the right to start deportation proceedings if we want to, which historically that hasn't been the case. Historically, they would allow the person to then do the consular processing that's required with the waiver. But so it puts a chill, right, on anybody who is thinking about doing that, that they're scared if they do that, they're going to just get arrested at the interview and deported to their home country. So, yeah, it is scary, yeah.
A question about if you're reporting and you want to stay a safe distance. I've seen on TikToks like people sharing like, don't say anything, like what's the phone number? Would that be considered getting engaged or like?
No,
an
thank
issue?
you for asking that question, because it's really helpful, because what happens is, so once somebody is arrested, and I think this kind of goes back to an earlier question, they're sort of lost for several days. So they're, in terms of like, you can't locate them. So ICE is not quick about letting people know where the person is detained. And they also move people around. So there's something called ICE Locator, if you could just Google it, it's called ICE Locator, and you can look for where your loved one or the person you care about is detained, if you have enough biographic information about them. But they can sometimes take up to a week to fill that information out. And so if it's helpful if, for example, you're just a good Samaritan, and there have been stories about this where they say, who can I call? You know, who can I call? What's the phone number I can call? And then that person, they can go down to the local ICE office right away and try and get more information. So, and then be able to at least tell the person. Because then the family's like, what happened to our husband, or what happened to our loved one? They won't know anything. ICE feels like they have no obligation to make a report to the family that we just arrested your family member. They'll say, you can look it up on the ICE Locator in a few days, and maybe that'll be there. Otherwise, sorry. So yeah, so it's great to try. I think it's fine. What I mean by interfering is like trying to literally stop it. Yeah, so you can be close enough where you can talk.
What about, I'm standing there, the person is being questioned over here, and I say, you don't have to answer their questions.
Yeah, I think that's fine. Yeah, that's helpful information. Yeah, because they may not know. Yeah.
I was just curious, so if a person is being threatened with arrest by ICE and they don't say anything,
Yeah.
and the burden is on ICE, but they go ahead and arrest them anyway, it seems like this is happening a lot.
That's the problem.
So what could a bystander do? I'm filming and
Because it's illegal.
I'm telling him, you can't arrest him.
But, I mean, you can't, I mean,
You have
telling
no
them don't
choice.
answer the questions
What-
might keep them from answering the questions, that's good. The reality is, these people are getting arrested and taken, basically being kidnapped, and sometimes sent to third countries that they're not even from. But
Right.
we have to document this, we have to show ICE that people on the ground care about what is happening to their neighbor.
But they still could be arrested.
Sure.
Yeah, so
Once a
don't,
week.
yeah, and if that happens, and there's gonna be a process, but it's horrible, I mean, it's really horrible, but we can't just, you know.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I was telling like how it's supposed to work, and I was also giving examples of how it is working. So I mean, it is confusing times, no doubt. But so first of all, ICE can always just say, hey, what's your name, where are you from? They're allowed to do that. They can have conversations. When they say to you, you're not free to go, that's a detention. You're detained there. They have to only be able to detain you because they have a reasonable suspicion, based on factors they can articulate, that you might be undocumented, and it's more than a hunch. If they arrest you, it's supposed to be based on probable cause, which is still less than 50% chance, but it's a higher standard than reasonable cause. I didn't want to get into all that, but it's a higher level to arrest them. But who knows if ICE is thinking, well, the person didn't answer, so now my suspicion is heightened, right? Because what they want to do is they want to be able to fingerprint the person. As soon as they can fingerprint them, then most people have had some encounter with immigration. So even if you came into the country undocumented, without inspection, through like the desert, there's a decent chance you were arrested the first time, and then they got your fingerprints. And that then they can say, even though you were silent, even though you didn't tell us anything, we took your fingerprints, and now we know who you are. We know you were deported 5 times trying to come into the country, and that you're from Mexico. Well, yeah, okay.
Just
You
turned
around 5 times. But then it's the fruit of the poisonous tree. You still want to make the argument if it was recorded. If it's not recorded, this person's deported. Unless they have some other application they can make, like they were here for 10 years, they're married to a U.S. citizen, they've got children here. I was talking about saving documents. But so the first thing is, yes, if ICE takes their fingerprints and figures out that their fingerprints show that the person is not a citizen, they will put them into removal proceedings.
could NorCal resist lawyers and say, but you had no probable cause, this was
Doesn't
filler?
matter.
Well, if it was
That doesn't
recorded,
matter.
if it was recorded, they would have a chance. If it was recorded, they would have a chance.
But not in the moment.
Not
I mean, this is gonna happen.
Okay, but
Not in the moment.
maybe possibly later.
Yeah, later with the immigration judge. But the problem that we have with the immigration judges, in case people miss that news, we now have 3 immigration judges in Sacramento. Last week we had 7. So we lost 4 immigration judges, were fired. One of them had been an immigration judge, well, excuse me, she had worked for the federal government immigration court system since she graduated from law school in 1995. She was deported in an email, or I'm getting tired. She was fired in an email, because she followed due process. So we're having problems. Like if we can't get our immigration judges because the good ones that follow constitutional law along with the statutory law are getting fired by the Trump administration with no recourse, we have to light the alarm. And so there's solutions that are also beyond legal, right? So we need, part of it is educating the community to talk to policymakers so that this doesn't continue. I was just telling Erica before this, I'm having a moment of panic because I thought, we can survive 3.5 more years of Trump. Well, maybe we can, but I'm trying, and then, for the people that we care about, but I'm thinking, okay, so we've gone through bad times in our country before, and they've lasted more than 4 years. And so I was wondering, is this going to last decades? Is this a change? Or is this like some people say this is like when you have it's an extinction moment, that there's like right before the extinction moment, there's kind of like a big flame, and then these conservatives are just going to die out, these racist conservatives are just going to die out. Or, that's what I hope, but my fear that I've been thinking about is like, what if this lasts longer? So anyway, so we need to make sure it doesn't last longer, and fighting that, so to get the change quickly, because we're losing right now, so in Sacramento, we've lost, we still have some good judges left. I don't know if we're going to fire the other 3. It's not like those 3 are terrible judges, but we were pretty lucky in Sacramento. We had good judges, but we're down to less than 50% of the judges that we had 2 weeks ago. So somebody, we need to be saying that this is wrong. I think conservative Americans think this is wrong. If you've dedicated your life to public service, to just get fired in an email. So I think as more and more people learning about what's going on, hopefully there'll be positive change. Yes, ma'am.
Do you have like a public outreach, like commercials, PSAs? I think that would be helpful, let more people know what's going on.
We don't, but we could. We're trying to be on the news and things like that to get information out. Maybe my students are good at that,
Get things out, because I think what's happening is we have no rights. We have, just because we're, our color might be protected, we think we have rights, but we really, our rights are only what you can fight for and litigate. But all of us are losing our rights, and I'm really alarmed about what happened in Chicago, where they took over a whole apartment building and detained everybody, including children, and zip-tied everybody. So that can happen. I'm not going to express what I think you can do about it, but that's where we are now. And that just happened 2 days ago, and they said, well, what about the children that were awoken with no clothes on in the middle of the night? And you know what they said? F the kids. So that's where we are. We're in a really bad situation. So thank you for what you're doing. I appreciate it.
I think they said that they could just make stuff up, right? They said, well, that's Tren de Agua was in that apartment building, so we're just, it's, can say whatever they want.
Except for, they were all different races, including a lot of black people. And the kids were black. They don't care. So it's not, we don't have rights. We have rights that we can fight for, like we have our human rights, but we don't really have anything that we can hang our hats on,
Well, this is
but I
good.
appreciate what you're doing. And this is the second event like this I've been to in our neighborhood in South Sacramento. We have NorCal Resist come. So
I can tell you that immigration advocates and attorneys are very, very willing to come to events and talk on what you want to hear and give their perspective. I mean, we're in this world where our first priority is helping these individual people. Like for me, I'm a private attorney, it's helping my clients that are already my clients. But you're so right that the behavior of ICE and what they're getting away with is eroding everybody's constitutional rights, everybody's freedom in this country. So if you are going to an event or you're about an event and you think immigration should be part of it, you think what's going on with ICE should be part of it, do not hesitate. NorCal Resist is a great resource. Somebody will answer the phone. The ILRC.org, they know advocates. I mean, they are advocates. They don't even practice law. They help all the other lawyers and help all the people. There are so many people in Sacramento who are willing to do that. The food bank has an immigration attorney. You have McGeorge right around the corner. He knows everybody. You know, he will put you in touch with somebody, and that person will show up, and they'll be there and expand that audience, right? Because it's not just about the immigrants. It's about all of us.
I would say that's probably a good way to segue into, so what resources does the McGeorge Clinic specifically have? And then when you go over here, what resources can hiring an immigration attorney privately have? So, start there.
Yeah, I mean, so we take on individual clients. So we don't charge any fees for the clients that we assist. Our only requirements are that they're low income and that they live in the Sacramento region, and that's it. So we do a lot of assistance with children. Actually, we represent children who came to the United States without their parents and have been abused or abandoned or neglected by a parent. And then we do a lot of asylum work. We work a lot with survivors of crimes. There's a pathway to legal status called the U visa if you've been a victim of a crime. So we do a lot of that work. And we do community presentations as well, but we focus on individual representation. So if you know, like, the neighbor who needs a consultation, the key is to call my direct number because we are a low-resourced clinic still. So I can give you my direct phone number. And that goes to my cell phone. So you can text me. It's 916-340-6109. So 916-340-6109. We obviously, we are an educational institution too, so we're not just like a legal service provider, but the service that we provide is very high quality, but we are limited in terms of the number of people that we can help. We generally have myself, I'm full-time, and we have a part-time attorney and a paralegal, that's it. And then we have 8 students that are working like 8 hours a week in the clinic. But especially when there's an emergency, we try to step up. So if there is an emergency, or if somebody just needing more information, that's a different thing. But an emergency, I can be contacted.
What's your last name?
It's on the first page there, but it's Nordahl, N-O-R-D-A-H-L. My first name's Blake.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right.
No, that's okay. I think I had it really small.
Yeah.
Mic for some reason.
And then you want to share a little about what you do?
Yeah, so I am a private immigration attorney. I've had 2 partners. I've had a couple associates. I've been on my own. And right now I have 1 law partner, 2 staff. A lot of immigration firms in Sacramento are like that. We're smaller. And we have clients that, we do a lot of different types of cases between me and my partner. We do like 90% of the types of cases you can get, what we do. I'd say, the majority of our practice is like families and working class families. Probably 70% or approximately ultimately are Latino or Latino, or identify that way. So, you know, I've always heard people say, oh, you're a lawyer, you must make a lot of money. No, I don't make a lot of money, and if my clients are not rich, but because they work hard and, you know, came to this country to do that, they can afford to pay for our services. Not everybody can, but a lot of them can. So, you know, all the private firms that, you know, most of them in Sacramento are along the same lines. We do refer people who just cannot afford to have private representation to, number one would be the Mexican consulate of Sacramento. So that's the Mexican government's, you know, territory in Sacramento. They're very active. They actually have consultations for free on specific days where private attorneys like me and others volunteer to do those consultations. Sometimes, and depending on the type of the case, the Mexican government will actually help pay the legal fees. We refer to Opening Doors, which is a nonprofit organization that does representation, including removal defense, like in court. Again, they can't take on every case, but they only take on low-income cases, and they do it pro bono for free. You know, the clinic, you know, we start with that. So
There's a new organization too that should be
Yes.
mentioned. So California Immigration Project.
Yes.
They're funded in part by the city of Sacramento. So it's California Immigration Project. They are doing some removal defense, which is immigration court work, and they are partnering with the city on that. They also do monthly workshops, helping right now. I think the focus is like green card applications, but they're open to other things. So that's once a month in Midtown. It's a new office, so I'm sorry I don't know exactly where it is. I think it's on S Street or something, but if you just Google California Immigration Project, so that's a great organization that just started. So,
I have a question. Why is it so hard to get your citizenship? I have a friend that's been here 20 years and
Yeah.
still haven't gotten it. What's going on?
yeah, there's a lot of funny videos to watch, I think. Who's the guy on HBO now? Anyway. Yeah.
Everybody's an immigrant except
Yeah,
for Indians.
that's why
We're
I vote too.
Indians, so
Yeah.
why is it so hard?
Yeah, that's why it's so annoying when people say, why don't they just get in line? What line do you get into? There's no line. Where's the line? Yeah.
That's
They'd be in it if they could. Well, we need, like, that's a whole other topic.
Oh, that's a whole new.
But it
If
literally,
they had their citizenship, there wouldn't be no problems.
Of course, yeah.
well, getting
There's a problem there, yeah.
Well, think about,
residence is the most important thing, but.
like, it's shocking, like, thinking about, okay, so, in the Mexican-American War, we took 47% more or less of Mexico, right? So, we took Mexico. So the people that are here that are from Mexico, anyway, so it gets
Well, this is
complicated.
2025, the technology is up there, how come the human being is not there?
Yeah.
Straighten this out.
Well,
I appreciate the choir.
I just want to give like a round of applause for you all to share. For next steps, not everyone was able to get a packet, so I'll get that from you.
Oh, we have a bunch more, I'm sorry.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, sorry. I didn't realize there was more people.
And maybe a digital version so we can share it out in our newsletter. And then all of the resources that you shared today, we'll share that out as well. And the next step for this meeting, sorry I blinked, is community resources, like in addition to this wonderful information. I think you had one as well.
An announcement for Lieutenant Springbridge, she wants everyone to know that there's a night shift in Oak Park now. So if you hear sideshows, give her a call. Her car's right here.
And if there's only one left, if you could just leave a ticket
What's your picture in there?
that would be great. Any other community events or resources?
Strong Sacktown is here with us. Strong Sacktown, and they have an event tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, I'm working with Strong Sactown. You can get like a description more on that, but this first Friday, October 3rd, we're doing on the intersection of 2nd and Broadway and 34th, I think. There's like a bike lane there. We're doing a little demonstration for like what that could look like with trees and like just having it be paved. So we're gonna have the trees, some activities, some lights during Friday. So we're really excited about that. We're gonna get more. Super.
Oh, no, you did great. Hi, my name is Elisa. I live in Midtown, but very excited to be a guest here today. And I help run Strong Sacktown, and we have these fun little printouts about what we kind of imagine, like what could be the space. And we just invite you, your neighbors. I mean, you probably have lots of thoughts about what that space could be. And we feel like, well, the city's done, some outreach and has some plans put together. We want to push for more, push for something that better suits, making that a corridor that is enjoyable to be on. Our group, Strong Sacktown, we're a all-volunteer community group. We have members all across the Sacramento region. Because our meetings conflict with your meetings, we don't often have as many Oak Park folks, but I think it's a really a strong connection because our whole thing is about improving the livability of Sacramento by focusing on how can we think about how we build both community and build like our infrastructure differently. Because right now, and for the past maybe 5 or 6 decades, the way that we choose to build is a pattern that isolates us, but also bankrupts cities. And it's a pattern that we've inherited as a country from the post-World War II era of focusing on, grow, 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 grow. And there are a lot of, now we know some of the negative impacts of that. So our group is all about trying small things, bottom up, grassroots level, focusing on how to make streets and places that people want to be. And so to us, that means doing events where we actually are out like reimagining a space together instead of being in a boardroom or looking at it from 20,000 feet in the air, but actually just being there on the ground. Like, what are the businesses? What do they need? How do we make a space enjoyable to be in? And that's why we talk about livability a lot. So we have more that we could say about that, but we do monthly meetings, we do lots of events. There's a lot of ways to get engaged, but mostly we want to engage with you all as folks who are in this community and probably have lots of visions and hopes for how to make Oak Park more livable. So thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks so much. And thank you to Autumn for being on the select committee with us.
And that's 5 to 9 tomorrow.
Yes, oh, sorry, 5 to 7.
5 to 7 tomorrow during First Friday at the Weird Triangle thing, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah, let me catch you there. So we're gonna have, we made all these benches. We're gonna set up these benches. We have these plants that we're gonna set out. We're gonna have bike-powered spin art, free bike tune-ups, tabling from Councilmember Maple's office, community shop class, Oak Park Neighborhood Association, thank you all, and Marinade Mobile Nursery, and some live music. So at the very least, come enjoy First Friday, and then when you're like, boy, I'm sure tired. I would love to have a nice free place to sit. That's what we're hoping to create. That's the vision for the space. So nice place to sit, get a free glass of water and lemonade, make some art, just enjoy your time. So hope you can make it. Come out 5 to 7 tomorrow. Thank you so much. Any other community events or share outs?
Hello, everybody. Joseph Thomas, Oak Park native, been in Oak Park for about 40 years. I just want to remind you guys, we have the Mardi Gras season quickly approaching in the city of Sacramento. For those of you guys don't know, we are a nonprofit organization. We've been in existence now for 4 years. We have a youth component to this called a Think Twice initiative. We're giving kids second choice, healthy choice decisions to make when they get into critical life-changing situations. Right, we got a couple of curriculums that also go with that, and the Mardi Gras use that. Right, I came up with the Mardi Gras about 5 years ago, trying to stimulate the economy on Broadway. It has grown into 3 different events in the city of Sacramento. I have a really huge parade on Del Paso Boulevard this year, February 15th. My spectacular parade on Broadway, February 7th. And I'm just asking you guys maybe to go to the website, sacktownmardigras.com. We're looking for more board members. We're trying to grow a little bit more this year. and we want to be more inclusive with this community. Right, my vision for Sacktown Mardi Gras was actually to stimulate the economy in Oak Park. I'm getting ready to move back to New Orleans in about 2 years to run for public office. My goal was to get this nonprofit to the Oak Park Neighborhood Association. So that's what I'm working towards, to build this brand up. Like I said, I'm an Oak Park resident. I used to play in this building, play all around here, ride my bikes here. Right, and I would love to have, make sure that the Mardi Gras lives on in the city of Sacramento, founded in my community, right? So I'm just asking you guys for y'all support and maybe a couple of prayers on for me for the next 2 years to see how we can wrap this up and make sure it lives on forever. One more thing, you gotta remember the Mardi Gras in New Orleans, I think they $2 billion last year within a 3-week span. We're trying to put together a delegation to go to New Orleans to study that and right? See how we can do that. Not only Sacramento Mardi Gras, but West Coast Mardi Gras. We are literally trying to grow this into something that can make a difference in these communities, right? You get the community together, then you can give them the resources, which is called wraparound services. And that's what the Mardi Gras do. We create everybody together, then we find out who need what mentors, who need daycare, who need PG&E, who need SMUD. That's the whole situation with the wellness fair after the parade, is to serve the community. Thank you guys so much. We got a couple of flyers. We got our new poster also. You can see around town. Right, we put a lot of work into this, man. Like I said, this is our 3rd year in existence, and we are absolutely proud of what we've done the last 3 years in the city of Sacramento. All right, I got a couple of business cards. Anybody want to know, please contact me, sacktownmardi.com. All right,
And happy birthday, I think it's your birthday today.
I think it was Sumiko, and then Sumiko, thank you for bringing us a refreshment. We always bring food, but you help out, so thank you so much for that. Yeah.
Hi, everybody. I'm Sumiko Hong. I lead community engagement for Aggie Square. And this month, I have many interesting things for you. If you know somebody who's uninsured or underinsured who needs a mammogram, UC Davis Health is scheduling free mammograms right now on Saturdays and Sundays in October. The flyers in Spanish on one side and English on the other. We got a grant from Valley Vision and we prospered together to teach high school and community college students biotech skills. So we are taking an interest list now, so if you know a high school junior or senior or someone in community college, we're going to teach them at Aggie Square and over on the main campus. 2 weekends, 1 in winter, 1 in spring, and 3 weeks in the summer. And we're going to compensate students to participate in the program because we know that a lot of students give up work time in order to do something like this. And we're also wanting to engage teachers who teach at those levels to help us validate the curriculum and the teaching methods and make sure that it's age appropriate. So if you know somebody who's in either of those categories, a student or teacher, we would love for them to join our interest list and we will notify them when the applications open in early 2026. One of the programs that the city funded that's taking place at Aggie Square is called the Sacktown Makers Program, and all the students who've been learning 3D printing skills are going to talk about their project and what they learned and pitch their business idea. So everyone is welcome to come to their pitch and demo night, which is happening at the end of October at Aggie Square. We're doing a job fair in partnership with the Sacramento Employment and Training Agency for one of the units at UC Davis Health that has the greatest number of hiring needs right now. So it's jobs in the radiology department, and it's things like radiology technologists or radiology assistants or patient service representatives. So these are an entry-level position for people with great customer service skills that want to start a great career at UC Davis Health. So that career fair is happening the last week of October, October 28th, from 10 to 2 at the SETA offices on Del Paso.
These are good union jobs, right? Good high paying, good benefits.
Yeah, some are union jobs, some are not, but all of them come with full university benefits, great retirement, great health, all those benefits. We're doing a really cool program at Aggie Square that pairs an artist with a researcher, and they work together over 9 months, and they're going to create a piece of art together, and then the art show will be at Aggie Square, and then it moves over to Mosac
the Museum of Science and Curiosity. So if you know an artist who might be interested in an opportunity like that, applications are open until October 13th. The Casa Brazilian Folkloric Arts of Sacramento group is going to lead an outdoor dance program at Aggie Square on the outdoor area on October 22nd. And there will also be a food truck there. There's a monthly event about innovation, and the next one is coming up on October 16th from 5 to 7 at Aggie Square. And the topic this coming month is Designing What Matters, Jobs, Pays, and Gains. So if you're interested in that topic, please come and see us. And then finally, UC Davis Health is running free heart screening for 12 to 25-year-olds for certain types of heart conditions that can be fatal and undiagnosed. So they're doing this heart screening thing, and you can sign up and go for free. They offer them kind of all over the region, and this one that's coming up, I think, is in Elk Grove. But everyone's welcome to go there, and you can check out the website and see the other locations where they're offering them. That's it.
Thank you so much, Tanisha. Any other flyer? And then big shout out to Oak Park Community Center for hosting us. You gotta be here out of here by 8 o'clock. Thank you all. Sure.
Michael Blair.
Yeah.
You can't
You guys already know, huh?
Yes.
How much are they?
Okay, so this is a shirt that I've had for about a year or two and never wore it before, but it fits cool and I'm happy with it. It's so plain, right? No design on it or anything. But I look so much cooler. It's magic. So these are only $20. Wait, I'm saying
25.
only $20. It's soft cotton. You can fall asleep in it. You won't want to take it off. You're gonna have to eventually, but you won't want to take it off. And if you want to, being in Oak Park, it's about street cred. Street cred, right? What better way to get street cred than wearing one of these, right? So before you leave, seriously consider buying one of these. Helps us out, gives us money to be able to give back to the community, do more things like this. So that's it. Thank you.